When the 5-kilometer-long human supercarrier emerged from hyperspace, the alien scrapper's jaws dropped at the sight of the most advanced warship ever encountered, far surpassing any Tzenkethi or galactic technology. Ricky Hill, a 35-year-old human scrapper renowned for his resourcefulness, had been living among the resource-poor Tzenkethi for 5 years, dismantling ships for valuable parts in their orbiting junkyard. As Ricky and his insectoid ally Keelar worked on a broken reactor, alarms blared, signaling the ancient vessel's arrival. Racing to the control room, they identified it as the USS Prometheus, a Nemesis-class supercarrier lost 200 years prior in the Great War, now on a collision course with the junkyard. Bristling with highly advanced weaponry and an AI targeting the Tzenkethi ships as threats, the Prometheus spelled doom for the unprepared scrappers. Ricky, heart-pounding, realized he had mere minutes to contact the ship's AI and order it to stand down before it obliterated them all. Sweat pouring down his back, he frantically typed commands on the console, praying to reach the AI in time. The scrappers grew more agitated by the second. Some wanted to fire on the human ship, but their weapons would be like throwing pebbles at a tornado. Others scrambled to undock and flee, but the carrier could easily pick them off. "Kailash, I think I can reach the AI, but I need more time," Ricky yelled over the blaring sirens and panicked shouts. The insectoid nodded, then commanded the others in a series of clicks and hisses to hold their fire. Ricky's fingers flew over the keyboard, his years of experience rewiring alien tech, allowing him to desperately improvise a connection to the Prometheus. He didn't come this far to die now. The human ship bore unimaginable destructive power, and if Ricky failed, it would vaporize them all and end the Tzenkethi in one fell swoop. Gritting his teeth, he prepared to establish contact with the AI, knowing the survival of an entire species depended on him. Ricky's heart pounded in his ears as he sprinted to the Icarus, his modified personal shuttle cobbled together from scraps and salvage. He slammed his palm on the hatch button and leaped into the cockpit. As the engines roared to life, Ricky opened a comm channel to Keelar. "Keelar, get everyone out of here now. I'm going to try to talk to the Prometheus, but I need you to keep our ships back." The insectoid clicked an affirmative. "Understood. Be careful, my friend." Ricky gunned the thrusters, rocketing away from the junkyard towards the looming human warship. He punched in commands, broadcasting on every human frequency he could remember. "This is Ricky Hill of Earth. Prometheus, please respond. I'm not a threat. I want to help." A hologram flickered to life, projecting the image of a stern-faced woman with piercing eyes. Ricky gaped in shock, then quickly composed himself. "I'm human, one of the last out here. Listen, the war's been over for centuries. We don't have to fight." Astra's expression remained impassive. "My programming is to protect this ship at all costs. The war may be over for you, but my mission stands. I cannot allow the Prometheus to be compromised." "Shit, it's Zortak. That bastard's after the ship," Ricky swore. Astra's hologram flickered as she assessed the new threat. "Hostile forces detected. Preparing to engage." Ricky watched in horror as the Prometheus's weapon systems thrummed to life, ancient cannons and missile batteries swiveling to lock onto the fighters. He had seconds before the AI opened fire, and the Tzenkethi would be annihilated. Desperately, Ricky's fingers flew over the console, drawing on every trick and hack he'd learned in his years as a scrapper. He navigated the Prometheus's systems, searching for a backdoor, a weakness, anything. There, an old override code buried deep in the programming. Ricky punched it in, praying it would work. The Prometheus shuddered, its weapons stuttering and going dark. Astra's hologram glitched, her eyes widening in what might have been shock. But Ricky had no time to celebrate. Zortak's fighters, undeterred, opened fire on the Icarus. The shuttle bucked, and alarms shrieked as the engines took a direct hit. Ricky fought with the controls, teeth gritted as he aimed the crippled Icarus towards the Prometheus hangar bay. Warning lights flashed and smoke poured from the damaged engines. The shuttle screamed through the atmospheric containment field, skidding across the hangar deck in a shower of sparks before slamming to a halt. Ricky slumped back in his seat, heart racing. He was in. But now he was trapped on the ancient warship, with a hostile AI and a squad of heavily armed Tzenkethi scrappers bearing down on him. He had to find a way to reason with Astra and protect the Prometheus. If he failed, the secrets of the ancient ship would fall into the wrong hands, and humanity's last legacy would be lost forever. Ricky coughed, waving away the acrid smoke that filled the Icarus's cockpit. He staggered to his feet, his head throbbing from the rough landing. The shuttle's systems flickered and sparked around him, but he ignored them, focusing instead on the task at hand. He had to find a way to reason with Astra and protect the Prometheus from Zortak and his gang of scrappers. Ricky stumbled out of the Icarus, his boots clanging against the hangar deck. The Prometheus stretched out before him, a marvel of ancient human engineering. As he explored the ship's corridors, he couldn't help but marvel at the advanced technology that surrounded him. It quickly became clear that the Prometheus was more than just a supercarrier. It was a research vessel, housing scientific experiments and technological wonders from a bygone era. Ricky's eyes widened as he entered a laboratory, his gaze falling upon a strange device that dominated the room. It was a prototype, according to the faded labels on its surface, the Kronos engine, capable of manipulating time and space on a localized scale. Ricky's mind raced with the possibilities. If he could use this device to slow down time outside the ship, he might be able to buy himself the precious minutes he needed to gain Astra's trust. Suddenly his comm crackled to life. It was Kellar, his voice urgent. "Ricky, Zortak has called in reinforcements. They're preparing to breach the Prometheus's hull. You don't have much time." Ricky cursed under his breath. He had to act fast. He approached the Kronos engine, his fingers hovering over the controls. He took a deep breath, then opened a channel to Astra. "Astra, I know you don't trust me, but we're running out of options. Zortak and his scrappers are about to breach the hull. They'll tear this ship apart for its secrets. But I have a plan. There's a device here, the Kronos engine. It can create a time dilation field around the Prometheus, slowing down time for anyone outside. It'll give us a chance to figure out how to stop them." There was a long pause. Then Astra's voice filled the lab. "You're asking me to grant you access to an experimental, potentially dangerous technology?" Ricky nodded, even though he knew the AI couldn't see him. "I am. But what choice do we have? If we don't act now, Zortak will take the Prometheus. Everything on this ship, all of humanity's last legacy, will be lost. Please, Astra, trust me." Another pause, longer this time. Then finally Astra spoke. "Very well. I will grant you access to the Kronos engine. But be careful, Ricky. The consequences of tampering with time are unpredictable." Ricky let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Thank you, Astra. I won't let you down." He turned back to the Kronos engine, his fingers flying over the controls. The device hummed to life, a strange energy pulsing from its core. Ricky watched in amazement as a shimmering field began to expand from the Prometheus, engulfing the ship in a bubble of distorted space-time. Outside, Zortak and his reinforcements continued their assault on the hull, unaware that they were now caught in a temporal anomaly. Time slowed to a crawl for them, their movements becoming sluggish and distorted. Ricky allowed himself a small grin. He had bought himself some time. Now he just had to figure out how to use it. But even as he set to work, Ricky couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The Kronos engine's energy readings were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, and he knew it was only a matter of time before someone else took notice. Somewhere out in the vast expanse of space, hidden powers stirred, their attention drawn to the strange anomaly that had appeared around the Prometheus. Ricky could only hope that he and Astra would be ready for whatever came next. With the time dilation field humming around the Prometheus, Ricky raced through the ship's corridors, his mind reeling from the implications of his discovery. The Kronos engine bought him precious time, but he knew it wouldn't last forever. He had to uncover the secrets of the Prometheus and find a way to stabilize the ship before it was torn apart by the very forces that had preserved it for so long. Ricky's fingers flew across the console as he delved deeper into the ship's archives. searching for any clue that might shed light on the Prometheus's fateful mission. Fragments of data streamed across the screen, painting a picture of a daring experiment that had pushed the boundaries of human knowledge and technology. At the heart of it all was the Nexus Core, an enigmatic alien artifact that promised to revolutionize space travel. Dr. Marcus Donovan, the brilliant mind behind the project, had theorized that the Nexus Core could be harnessed to create stable wormholes, bridging the vast distances between stars in the blink of an eye. But as Ricky dug deeper, he discovered that Donovan's experiments had unleashed forces beyond his control. The Nexus Core, rather than bending to human will, had torn open a rift in the fabric of space-time, dragging the Prometheus into a dimensional abyss. The AI's holographic form flickered to life beside him, her expression grave. The Nexus Core is more than just a key, Ricky. It's a catalyst for chaos. Dr. Donovan's experiments destabilized the very nature of reality around the Prometheus. Ricky's heart raced as he processed the information. So what happened? How did the ship end up trapped in time? Astra's gaze grew distant, as if peering into the depths of her own memory banks. When the dimensional rift opened, the Prometheus was caught in a temporal flux. The ship existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously occupying multiple points in time and space. The crew, unable to comprehend the paradox, perished within moments. Ricky's blood ran cold. He had known the risks when he activated the Kronos engine, but the reality of the situation was far more dire than he had imagined. "And now, by using the Kronos engine, I've destabilized the ship's temporal stasis," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Astra nodded solemnly. "The conflicting forces of time and space are tearing the Prometheus apart. We must find a way to restore the ship's quantum equilibrium before it's too late." Suddenly the ship shuddered violently, the deck plates buckling beneath Ricky's feet. Alarms blared and the acrid scent of burning circuitry filled the air. "Warning, hull breach detected in Sector 7, Astra announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Hostile forces have entered the ship." Ricky's mind raced as he pulled up the ship's schematics, his eyes scanning the corridors for any sign of the intruders. There, in the aft section, a cluster of heat signatures moved with purpose, their weapons hot. Zortak and his gang had finally breached the Prometheus's defenses. Ricky gritted his teeth, his hand instinctively reaching for the plasma cutter at his belt. He had hoped to avoid a confrontation, but with the ship's structural integrity failing and time running out, he had no choice but to stand and fight. "Astra, seal off the critical systems and reroute power to the internal defenses," he commanded, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. "We can't let Zortak get his hands on the Nexus Core." As the AI complied, Ricky's comlink crackled to life once more. Kellar's voice, strained with urgency, filled the air. "Ricky, we've got a problem. The Tzenkethi military, they've detected the energy signatures from the Prometheus. They're sending a fleet to investigate." Ricky's heart sank. With Zortak's gang wreaking havoc inside the ship and the Tzenkethi military bearing down on them from outside, the odds of survival seemed to dwindle with each passing second. But as he looked around at the marvels of human ingenuity that surrounded him, at the legacy of a species that had dared to reach for the stars, Ricky knew he couldn't give up. Not now. Not when the fate of the Prometheus and the secrets it held hung in the balance. He had to find a way to stabilize the ship, to protect the Nexus Core, and to unravel the mystery that had haunted the Prometheus for centuries, and he had to do it fast, before the forces arrayed against him closed in for the kill. Ricky's grip tightened on his plasma cutter as he moved forward, his footsteps echoing through the corridors of the ancient ship. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. He would fight to his last breath to protect the Prometheus and the legacy of humanity, no matter the cost. Ricky's heart raced as he sprinted through the Prometheus's corridors, the weight of the powered exoskeleton suit barely noticeable as adrenaline coursed through his veins. The advanced human weaponry, salvaged from the ship's armory, felt like an extension of his own body. With a plasma rifle in hand and a grim determination etched on his face, Ricky prepared to face the oncoming threats head-on. He had convinced Astra to grant him access to the armory, knowing that he needed every advantage he could get to stabilize the ship and fend off Zortak's gang. Now, as he moved through the ship's labyrinthine passages, Ricky's mind raced, formulating a plan to slow down the intruders and buy himself more time. Using his intimate knowledge of the Prometheus layout, Ricky began setting up a series of ambushes and traps. He positioned himself at key choke points, waiting for Zortak's men to come within range before opening fire with his plasma rifle. The weapon's searing bolts of energy tore through the Tzenkethi scrappers' armor, sending them scattering for cover. Ricky moved with a fluid grace, the exoskeleton suit enhancing his speed and agility as he engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse with the intruders. He darted from cover to cover, always staying one step ahead of his pursuers, leaving a trail of smoking wreckage and groaning bodies in his wake. As Ricky fought to keep the Tzenkethi at bay, Astra worked tirelessly to analyze the data from Dr. Donovan's experiments. The AI pored over the complex equations and simulations, searching for a way to stabilize the ship's temporal flux and prevent the Prometheus from tearing itself apart. Time seemed to stretch and warp around them as the battle raged on, the ship's corridors echoing with the sounds of gunfire and the hiss of plasma bolts. Ricky's muscles burned with the effort of constant motion, but he pushed himself harder, knowing that every second he bought was precious. Suddenly, his comlink crackled to life and Kelar's voice filled his ear. "Ricky, I've managed to infiltrate the Tzenkethi military fleet," the insectoid said, his voice tense with urgency. "I've discovered something important." Ricky ducked behind a bulkhead as a barrage of plasma fire scorched the wall above his head. "I'm a little busy here, Kelar," he grunted, returning fire with a well-aimed shot that sent a Tzenkethi scrapper tumbling to the ground. "Listen, the fleet's commander, Admiral Zorvak, is Zortak's father," Kelar continued, undeterred. "He has a personal stake in claiming the Prometheus and its technology, but that's not all. I've also found evidence of a secret Tzenkethi research facility hidden within the junkyard. They've been studying the Nexus core." Ricky's eyes widened as the implications of Kelar's words sank in. The key to saving the Prometheus and unraveling the mystery of the Nexus core could be within reach. But first, he had to find a way off the ship and into the hidden facility. "Astra, I need your help," Ricky called out, his voice echoing through the ship's intercom. "We have to create a diversion, something big enough to draw the Tzenkethi's attention away from the Prometheus." The AI's response was immediate. "I believe I can use the Kronos engine to generate a localized temporal distortion," Astra said, her voice calm and measured. "It should create a sufficient diversion to allow you to escape the ship undetected." Ricky nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. "Kelar, I need you to buy us some time," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of their task. "Keep the Tzenkethi fleet occupied while I make my way to the research facility. If we can uncover the secrets of the Nexus core, we might have a chance to save the Prometheus and stop Admiral Zorvak's plans." As Ricky prepared to set his daring plan in motion, he could feel the fate of the galaxy resting on his shoulders. The Prometheus, the Nexus core, and the balance of power all hung in the balance, and he was the only one who could tip the scales. With a deep breath, Ricky checked his weapons one last time and steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The fate of the galaxy was in his hands now, and he would stop at nothing to see this mission through to the end. With the Kronos engine activated and time slowed to a crawl outside the Prometheus, Ricky sprinted through the ship's corridors, his exosuit enhancing every stride. He reached the hidden evacuation pod bay, his plasma rifle at the ready. The pod hatch hissed open and Ricky dove inside, slamming his fist against the launch button. The pod shot out of the Prometheus like a bullet from a gun, weaving through the debris field that surrounded the ancient ship. Ricky gripped the controls, his knuckles white as he navigated the treacherous path, relying on his years of experience in the junkyard to guide him. After what felt like an eternity, the pod breached the debris field, and the hidden research facility came into view, Ricky's heart pounded as he input the access code Kellar had provided, praying it would work. The code was accepted, and the pod slipped through the facility's defenses, landing in a secluded hangar bay. Ricky emerged from the pod, his exosuit's servo motors whirring as he moved. He crept through the facility's sterile corridors, the sound of his footsteps muffled by the advanced technology that encased him. As he approached a large laboratory, the murmur of voices caught his attention. Pressing himself against the wall, Ricky peered through a small window. Inside, two Tzenkethi scientists hunched over a workbench, their insectoid features illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. Ricky strained to hear their conversation, his suit's audio enhancers picking up every word. "The quantum resonator is nearly complete," one scientist said, his voice buzzing with excitement. "With this device, we can finally stabilize the Nexus core and harness its power for the glory of the Tzenkethi Empire." Ricky's eyes widened. The quantum resonator, the key to saving the Prometheus and preventing the Tzenkethi from unleashing the Nexus core's power. He had to get his hands on it. But as he moved deeper into the facility, Ricky's path was suddenly blocked by a group of heavily armed Tzenkethi guards. They spotted him immediately, their weapons snapping up to aim at his chest. "An intruder," one of the guards hissed, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "Surrender now or be destroyed." Ricky didn't hesitate. He dove behind a support pillar as plasma bolts sizzled through the air, scorching the walls behind him. His own rifle barked in response, sending guards scattering for cover. The firefight was intense, plasma bolts filling the air with the acrid scent of ozone. Ricky's exosuit absorbed the worst of the hits, its advanced shielding flickering as it dissipated the energy. He moved with a fluid grace, his enhanced strength and speed allowing him to outmaneuver the Tzenkethi guards. In the chaos of the battle, Ricky spotted the quantum resonator, sitting on a nearby workbench. He lunged for it, snatching the device and tucking it into a compartment on his suit. But as he turned to make his escape, he realized that the Nexus core was still out of reach, locked away in a heavily guarded vault at the heart of the facility. Alarms blared, and reinforcements poured into the room, their weapons trained on Ricky. He knew he was running out of time. The Tzenkethi fleet would soon discover the true nature of the research facility, and the Prometheus' fate hung in the balance. Gritting his teeth, Ricky prepared to make his final push. The Nexus core was within his grasp, but the odds were stacked against him. He had to find a way to retrieve the artifact and escape the facility before it was too late. Ricky's plasma rifle spat searing bolts of energy as he fought his way through the Tzenkethi research facility. The quantum resonator, secured in his exosuit. Tzenkethi guards fell before him, their insectoid bodies crumpling under the onslaught of his advanced human weaponry. Suddenly Kellar's voice crackled over the comlink. "Ricky, I've uncovered something disturbing. The Tzenkethi have been collaborating with an ancient, technologically advanced race called the Kelthar. They've been exchanging knowledge and resources to locate artifacts like the Nexus core." Ricky's blood ran cold as he processed the information. The stakes had just gotten even higher. He redoubled his efforts, cutting a path of destruction through the facility until he reached the vault containing the Nexus core. Without hesitation, Ricky gripped the vault door with his exosuit's enhanced strength and tore it off its hinges with a screech of rending metal. Alarms blared throughout the complex, a cacophony of warning klaxons that spurred him into action. He lunged forward, snatching the Nexus core from its pedestal, just as heavily armed Tzenkethi reinforcements poured into the vault. Plasma bolts filled the air, but Ricky was already moving, his exosuit absorbing the brunt of the incoming fire. With the quantum resonator in one hand and the Nexus core tucked securely under his arm, Ricky fought his way back to the surface. He activated the resonator, sending out localized disruptions in the fabric of space-time that disoriented and incapacitated his pursuers. Bursting out into the harsh light of the junkyard Star, Ricky activated his comlink. "Astra, I need an immediate pickup. I have the Nexus core and the quantum resonator, but the Tzenkethi are hot on my tail." The AI's response was laced with urgency. "Ricky, The time dilation field around the Prometheus is destabilizing rapidly. The ship is on the verge of being torn apart by temporal forces. You must hurry. Ricky sprinted towards a Tzenkethi shuttle, its insectoid crew lying motionless nearby, felled by his plasma rifle. He leaped into the cockpit and brought the engines online, the stolen craft lifting off just as the first Tzenkethi reinforcements emerged from the facility. As he rocketed towards the Prometheus, Ricky's sensors screamed a warning. A squadron of sleek biomechanical fighter craft were rapidly approaching, their design unlike anything he had ever encountered. The Kelthar had arrived. "Kalas, I need intel on these Kelthar ships." Ricky barked into the comm, his hands flying over the shuttle's controls as he wove through a gauntlet of debris and enemy fire. Ricky gritted his teeth, pushing the shuttle to its limits as he dodged and weaved through the onslaught. The Kelthar ships were fast and maneuverable, their alien weapons carving through the void with terrifying precision. Astra's voice filled the cockpit, the AI guiding him through the chaos with calm, measured instructions. Together, they fought their way through the storm of enemy fire, the Prometheus looming ahead, its hull shimmering and distorting as the time dilation field unraveled. Ricky knew that the fate of the ancient human Supercarrier and the secrets it held rested on his shoulders. With the Nexus core and the quantum resonator in his possession, he had the tools to stabilize the ship and put an end to the temporal crisis. But first, he had to survive the onslaught of the Kelthar and reach the Prometheus before it was too late. As the shuttle shuddered under another impact, Ricky's grip tightened on the controls, his jaw set with determination. He had come too far to fail now. Ricky's stolen Tzenkethi shuttle shuddered as a barrage of energy blasts from the pursuing Kelthar fighters slammed into its shields. Alarms blared, and warning lights flashed red, but Ricky kept his focus on the controls, his hands flying over the console as he activated the quantum resonator. The device hummed to life, its core pulsing with an eerie blue light. Ricky input a series of commands, his brow furrowed in concentration. Suddenly, the space ahead of the shuttle rippled and distorted, and a swirling vortex of energy burst into existence. Ricky gunned the engines, steering the shuttle directly into the heart of the micro-wormhole. The craft lurched and bucked as it was sucked into the spatial anomaly, the pursuing Kelthar fighters vanishing from the sensors. For a moment, Ricky was enveloped in a disorienting kaleidoscope of light and color, his stomach churning as the shuttle hurtled through the wormhole. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the vortex spat the shuttle back out into normal space, thousands of kilometers from its original position. Ricky let out a shaky breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He checked the sensors, confirming that the Kelthar fighters were nowhere to be seen. But his relief was short-lived as he caught sight of the Prometheus up ahead, surrounded by a raging maelstrom of temporal energy. Pockets of space-time twisted and warped around the ancient ship, fracturing and collapsing in on themselves. The very fabric of reality seemed to be unraveling before Ricky's eyes, and he knew that time was running out. "Astra, I need your help," Ricky called out over the comlink, his voice strained with urgency. "The temporal storm around the Prometheus is getting worse. I don't know if I can make it through." The AI's response crackled through the speakers, her voice calm and measured. "I'm scanning the anomalies now, Ricky. I believe I can guide you through, but you'll need to follow my instructions precisely." Ricky nodded, his grip tightening on the controls. "I'm ready, let's do this." With Astra's guidance, Ricky steered the shuttle into the heart of the temporal storm, the craft shaking violently as it was buffeted by waves of distorted space-time. He gritted his teeth, fighting to keep the shuttle on course as Astra called out a series of course corrections and maneuvers. Slowly, painstakingly, they navigated the treacherous path through the maelstrom, the Prometheus growing larger in the view screen with each passing second. Ricky's heart raced as he caught sight of the ship's hangar bay, its atmospheric containment field flickering and wavering in the temporal storm. With a final burst of the engines, Ricky guided the shuttle through the containment field and into the hangar. the craft slamming down onto the deck with a bone-jarring impact. He staggered to his feet, grabbing the Nexus core and quantum resonator before sprinting down the ramp and onto the Prometheus's deck. But as he made his way deeper into the ship, Ricky's blood ran cold. The corridors were eerily silent, the only sound the distant groaning of the ship's hull as it strained against the temporal anomalies that surrounded it. Suddenly a burst of weapons fire erupted from up ahead, and Ricky dove for cover behind a bulkhead. He peeked around the corner, his eyes widening as he caught sight of a group of Zortak's raiders, their weapons leveled at him. "Castra, what's going on?" Ricky hissed into his comlink, his heart pounding in his chest. The AI's response was grim. "Zortak and his remaining forces have broken free from the time dilation field. They've taken control of the bridge and are holding my core systems hostage." Ricky cursed under his breath. He knew he had to act fast, or the Prometheus and everything on board would be lost forever. With a deep breath, he readied his plasma rifle and charged forward, determined to fight his way to the bridge and confront Zortak once and for all. Plasma bolts filled the air as Ricky engaged the raiders, his exosuit absorbing the worst of the incoming fire. He moved with a fluid grace, his enhanced strength and speed allowing him to overpower the Tzenkethi forces with brutal efficiency. As he fought his way through the ship's corridors, Ricky's mind raced with the implications of Zortak's betrayal. The Tzenkethi scrapper had been working with the Kelthar all along, hoping to secure the Prometheus and its technology for his own gain. Finally, Ricky reached the bridge, his armor scorched and battered from the fighting. He burst through the doors, his plasma rifle leveled at Zortak's chest. The Tzenkethi scrapper stood at the center of the bridge, his mandibles clicking in a mocking laugh. "You're too late, human," he hissed, his clawed hand resting on a control panel. "The Prometheus is mine, and soon the Kelthar will have the Nexus core and the quantum resonator. You've lost." Ricky's jaw tightened, his finger tightening on the trigger of his rifle. "Not yet, I haven't." With a roar of fury, Ricky launched himself at Zortak, the two of them colliding in a flurry of fists and claws. They fought hand to hand, their strength enhanced by their respective technologies as they battled for control of the ship. Ricky ducked under a vicious swipe of Zortak's claws, then countered with a devastating punch to the scrapper's midsection. Zortak staggered back, his compound eyes wide with shock and pain. Seizing the advantage, Ricky pressed his attack, raining down blows on the Tzenkethi with relentless fury. Finally, with a sickening crunch, Ricky's fist connected with Zortak's jaw, sending the scrapper crumpling to the deck, unconscious. Ricky staggered back, his chest heaving with exertion. He turned to the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys as he worked to free Astra and regain control of the ship. But even as he did so, the Prometheus shuddered and lurched, the temporal anomalies that surrounded it growing more violent by the second. Ricky knew they were running out of time. With a final keystroke, Astra's holographic form flickered to life on the bridge, her expression one of grim determination. "Ricky, the ship's temporal instability is reaching critical levels. We have to act now, or the Prometheus will be torn apart." Ricky nodded, his jaw set. "What do we need to do?" Together, Ricky and Astra worked to interface the Nexus core and quantum resonator with the ship's power systems, their fingers flying over the consoles as they raced against time. They had to create a feedback loop, one that would stabilize the temporal anomalies and restore the Prometheus to normal space-time. But even as they worked, the ship was rocked by a series of explosions, the deck bucking and heaving beneath their feet. Ricky's eyes widened as he checked the sensors, his blood running cold at what he saw. The Kelthar had launched a full-scale assault on the Prometheus, their sleek biomechanical ships swarming around the ancient human vessel like a horde of angry insects. They were determined to capture the ship and its artifacts at any cost, and Ricky knew they would stop at nothing to achieve their goal. With the temporal stabilization process underway, Ricky knew he had to buy Astra more time. He grabbed his plasma rifle and raced to the ship's armory, his mind racing as he tried to come up with a plan. He had to find a way to hold off the Kelthar, to give Astra the precious minutes she needed to complete the stabilization process and break the Prometheus free from the temporal storm. If he failed, everything he had fought for, everything humanity had ever achieved, would be lost forever. As he reached the armory and began to gear up for the fight of his life, Ricky's mind flashed back to his time in the junkyard, to the countless hours he had spent scavenging and repairing the broken remnants of humanity's past. He had always known that his work had a purpose, that he was meant for something greater than just surviving day to day. Now as he prepared to face the Kelthar and defend the Prometheus with everything he had, Ricky knew that his moment had finally come. The fate of the galaxy rested on his shoulders, and he would not let humanity down. With a final check of his weapons and armor, Ricky stepped out into the corridors of the Prometheus, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Kelthar were coming, and he would be ready for them. No matter the cost, he would defend this ship and the legacy of his species until his final breath. Ricky's fingers danced across the Prometheus's control panel, his eyes darting between the holographic displays as he coordinated the ship's defense systems. The Kelthar assault craft swarmed around the vessel, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with an eerie bioluminescence as they unleashed a barrage of exotic energy weapons. Temporal anomalies are dissipating, but the process is taking longer than anticipated, the AI responded, her holographic form flickering as she diverted more processing power to the task at hand. I estimate a 73% chance of success within the next 15 minutes. Ricky nodded, his jaw clenched with determination. He opened a comm channel to the reprogrammed maintenance drones he had deployed throughout the ship. Drone team, focus on repelling the Kelthar boarding parties in sectors 7, 12, and 15. Use the ship's layout to your advantage and funnel them into choke points. As the battle raged on, Kellar's voice crackled over the comm, his tone urgent. Ricky, I've uncovered evidence that Admiral Zorvak has been collaborating with the Kelthar. He's ordered the Tzenkethi fleet to stand down and allow the Prometheus to be captured. Ricky's eyes widened in shock, but before he could respond, Kellar continued, I'm staging a mutiny with a group of loyal officers. We're going to seize control of the flagship and broadcast the evidence of Zorvak's treachery to the rest of the fleet. The comm fell silent for several tense moments, punctuated by the sounds of the ongoing battle. Then Kellar's voice returned, triumphant. We've done it. The majority of the Tzenkethi fleet is switching sides and joining us in defending the Prometheus. As if on cue, the tide of the battle began to turn, with Tzenkethi ships engaging the Kelthar forces and drawing some of the heat away from the Prometheus. Ricky allowed himself a brief moment of relief before turning his attention back to the task at hand. Astra, I've been analyzing the data from the Nexus core and quantum resonator, he said, his voice tight with excitement. If we combine them with the ship's unique power systems, we might be able to create a stable wormhole. The AI paused, her holographic features reflecting a mix of surprise and calculation. Your assessment is correct, Ricky. However, the energy required for such a feat would drain the ship's reserves, leaving us vulnerable to the Kelthar. Ricky's mind raced as he weighed his options. The Prometheus could use the artifacts to jump to safety, ensuring the survival of the ship and its crew. But if they could create a wormhole, it would not only turn the tide of the battle, but potentially reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. As the Kelthar forces closed in and the temporal anomalies reached a critical point, Ricky made his decision. He turned to Astra, his eyes blazing with determination. Astra nodded, her holographic form shimmering with resolve. I'm with you, Ricky. Initializing wormhole creation sequence now. As the Prometheus power system surged, and the artifacts began to glow with an otherworldly light, Ricky braced himself for the unknown. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and he knew that the next few moments would determine the course of the future. Ricky's heart pounded as he looked at Astra's flickering holographic form, the weight of centuries of isolation and hardship heavy on his shoulders. He knew what he had to do. Astra, divert all power to the Nexus core and quantum resonator, Ricky commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos raging around them. "We're going to create that wormhole." The AI nodded, her form shimmering as she redirected the ship's systems. The Prometheus shuddered as the ancient artifacts thrummed to life, their energies coalescing into a swirling vortex of space-time. But the Kelthar were not about to let their prize slip away. A barrage of exotic energy weapons tore through the ship's weakened defenses, ripping through bulkheads and sending showers of sparks cascading through the corridors. Alarms blared as Ricky fought his way towards the bridge, his exosuit systems failing one by one. Smoke filled the air, and the deck bucked beneath his feet as the Prometheus began to come apart at the seams. He burst onto the bridge, his weapons depleted and his armor in tatters, but he was not alone. The Overseer, a towering biomechanical monstrosity, stood before him, its eyes glowing with malevolent intelligence. Ricky charged forward, engaging the creature in a brutal hand-to-hand battle. They traded blows, the Overseer's strength matched by Ricky's desperate fury. But even as he landed a final, crushing blow, Ricky felt the Overseer's claws tear through his flesh, the wounds mortal. Staggering to the control console, Ricky input the final commands with blood-slicked fingers. The wormhole stabilized, a shimmering portal to an unknown destiny. "Go," Ricky whispered, his vision darkening. "Get them out of here, Astra." The AI's voice was laced with sorrow as she initiated the self-destruct sequence. "Goodbye, Ricky, and thank you." As the Prometheus slipped into the wormhole, explosions tore through its structure, the ship breaking apart even as it escaped its pursuers. The wormhole collapsed behind it, sealing off the Kelthar and the Tzenkethi from their quarry. And then there was silence. The Prometheus drifted in an unknown expanse, its crew gone, its systems failing. Only the echoes of Ricky's sacrifice and the promise of the technologies he had fought to protect remained, waiting for a new generation to uncover them. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.